Thank you for joining us tonight. This is the September 25th, 2014 meeting of the East Fishkill Town Board. Would you please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. A couple of things tonight before we get going. Under supervisors' announcements, we just recently had Community Day. It was a little bit rainy. It wasn't too bad, held off for most of the afternoon. But I would like to say to everybody that participated in Community Day, to our vendors, our sports teams, and everybody who came out, thank you very much. The parade went off well, and we had a couple of hours of pretty good weather. Also, I'd have to give many thanks to Recreation Director Bill Green, Janet McHugh, Lori Ferreira, Mike Geiser, Christine Selbach, and Claire Hurley. Without their help, we couldn't have done Community Day. It takes a lot of work. Everybody's getting together, and they did a great job. And the weather, all in all, wasn't bad. So I'd like to thank them and everybody that came out. Second on the agenda, the Sons of Italy, I believe, is here tonight to make a presentation. We have a representative from the Sons of Italy.
Yes.
Joe, if you would please come up to the microphone. Joe Zingoni, thank you, Joe, for coming.
First of all, I'd like to identify myself. My name is Joe Zingoni. I am the president of the Sons of Italy, Joe DiMaggio Lodge. I have a few members here with me tonight, and the reason why we're here, we wanted to thank you and all of the board members for allowing us to use the recreation field for our annual festival. This year, we're a little more luckier than we were the year before, but thank God for that. As a token of appreciation, and also I'd like to thank the police department, the recreation. They're always there for us. They do a great job. We have a donation for $1,000 for the town of East Fishkill, and you can do whatever you want with that, hopefully recreation. It's a good source. And we also have $1,500 for Julie's Jungle that we would like to donate.
Wow.
And we also have a $500 check on behalf of my wife Elizabeth and I for Julie's Jungle.
Joe, I am just taking.
Yeah. We're looking forward to coming back next year if you allow us, and that's how we stay in business.
I can't thank you enough, because as long as I've been here, and I know Peter's been here, the Sons and us have worked together very well. The weather hasn't always cooperated, but even we worked that out in a few of those years. But thank you so much. I can't tell you how much this means to us. Is there anybody here from Julie's Jungle that would like to come maybe and accept these wonderful donations? If there's anybody here, and oh my goodness, look at them all come up here. Everybody's here from Julie's Jungle.
When you gave away money,
Joe,
they're
when
all
you say money.
I know.
We also have to have a Kodak moment. So everybody get together.
Thank you, Liz. Thank you.
Right.
Okay,
Thank you, Joe. Thank you, everybody. You know, Julie's Jungle is a terrific playground for children of all abilities, and something we support wholeheartedly. And thank you to Joe and the Sons of Italy. This is just a wonderful thing. All righty, moving on. Madam Clerk, will you call the roll, please?
Councilperson Cassidy?
Here.
Councilperson D'Alessandro?
Present.
Councilperson Franco?
Present.
Councilperson Marinaro?
Present.
Supervisor Hickman?
Present. Thank you, Madam Clerk. Madam Clerk, we have the minutes from the August 28th, 2014 meeting. Have there been any corrections, additions, or changes to those minutes as submitted?
No, there have not.
Do I have a motion to approve the minutes of August 28, 2014 as submitted?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you very much. We have nothing this evening under receipt and file, so we'll move to the public hearings. The first public hearing we have tonight is a public hearing on a proposed Cablevision franchise agreement contract, as we have a contract with Cablevision to supply us. This is how we do our Channel 22 broadcasts, and Cablevision has a franchise in the town of East Fishkill. Before we have the gentleman from Cablevision, Dan's here. Where's Dan? Dan, come on up if you come up to the podium. I'd like to say, you know, a lot of times we get calls from people, they say, gee, we have Cablevision all over the town of East Fishkill. And I also saw, as I've said before in a document, that Cablevision actually purchased the cable rights years, I think 1991. They purchased the actual cables on the poles. So Cablevision has been our supplier. But I would, excuse me, Tom.
That's okay. I just want to make note to the supervisor and everyone else. Due to my employment, I am abstaining from this discussion and vote.
Thank you very much, Tom. I appreciate that, and I'd forgotten to mention that fact. And just really quick, people say, well, could we have other competitors in? Or I'd just like to make a note that this contract is non-exclusive, so if another vendor did want to come in, do the cable, do the infrastructure, I believe, and Tom, correct me if I'm wrong, they would be bound by the same contract that we have with Cablevision. So tonight we have a Cablevision contract to consider, and Danny House from Cablevision is a representative to discuss it with us tonight. So, first, do I have a motion to open the public hearing? That was my intro.
So moved.
Do I have a second? Second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Public hearing is now open, and Dan, now you can speak.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor, members of the board. As you said, my name is Dan Ahouse. I'm a area director for government affairs at Cablevision, and I've spent a good amount of time here over the past couple of months working with the supervisor and with the staff to renew the existing franchise that Cablevision has here in the town of East Fishkill. If I could just take a couple of minutes to share some of the highlights of the contract with you, and then I'll be happy to answer any questions that anyone may have. So the contract that's before you, the franchise, is based off of the existing franchise that is currently in place here in the town. Some adjustments have been made to some of the elements, some of the sections to reflect changes in laws, changes in practices at the company, or changes in statute here in the town. It's a 15-year term, which is a pretty standard term with other municipalities in the area, usually 10 or 15 years. This is a 15-year term. Cablevision has built out the entire town of East Fishkill in terms of where people want service, so the contract does not require any additional construction. If there are individuals who do not have service who would like service, we'll certainly talk to them about bringing our plant and network to their property. But as this contract is now, it won't require us to do any work either on poles or in the town's right-of-way. As part of the agreement, Cablevision will continue to provide free cable service to 19 locations here in East Fishkill, including municipal buildings, schools, and libraries. We're pleased to be able to provide that service and happy that it's included again in this agreement. We did switch out one property that was not getting service to a new property where you'd like to have service. That was the only change in that part of the agreement. Again, we're continuing to provide our free internet service here at Town Hall, municipal internet, to allow the connectivity here for government operations. We will also, as you mentioned earlier, Channel 22 is our government access channel here in the town that you run. That will remain in place. We are making an $80,000 cash grant in support of that channel to upgrade your equipment. Telecommunications industry is very dynamic and equipment's always changing, so this will allow the town to upgrade the equipment you have to meet the needs of the programming. That grant will take place in 2 installments, a $50,000 grant right after the agreement is approved, and then an additional $30,000 grant in the 8th year of the agreement, so that if any equipment becomes obsolete, you'll have the resources to make the upgrades that you need. And I should state in closing that Cablevision will continue to pay a quarterly franchise fee to the town, 5% of the gross revenues that we make from our customers here in the town. That 5% is the statutory maximum, so the town is getting the most that is available from the relationship. With that, I'll open it up. If you have any questions, I'll try to answer them as best I can.
Okay, thank you, Dan. And we've discussed this, and the comptroller and I have discussed this contract also. Anybody on the board have any questions for Mr. Rayhouse from Cablevision?
Well, go ahead. I got a question. I mean, I use your system, and I've been using it for quite a while. Two things: prices have been going up, and the service is not as good as it used to be. I've had the same concerns from a lot of the constituents in the town. So, what can we do to probably balance one and address the other?
Sure.
I mean, I know that you have expenses, but you know, we have quite a variety of citizens. We have seniors, and some of the concerns are the prices, and many times you lose the service just at any time, and it's quite often. So that's kind of unacceptable, considering that the technology that we have out there today. So I really would like to find out, why do we have these kind of problems in our community?
Well, thank you for that. It's unfortunate to hear those comments. Cablevision operates in one of the nation's most competitive telecommunications markets. We compete directly in more communities with more households than any other cable provider in the country, meaning AT&T, Verizon, Fios, and all the satellite companies penetrate into more of our market than anywhere else. So it's that competition that's always driving us on these types of decisions, on our pricing and on the investments that we make in our network. We know that if we're not providing a service to the customers that they want and that they feel is adequate, and we're not giving it to them at a price that they think is fair and competitive, we'll lose those customers. So it's in that environment where, and I should say, even in East Fishkill, where, as the supervisor mentioned, there's not another wireline provider, we still do compete with Dish and DirecTV. I'm sure there are people in the room today who are their customers. And the investments that we make and the pricing that we do in East Fishkill isn't really segregated from the other communities where we do compete directly, right? We don't look at let's say Wappingers or Wappingers Falls, where there is Fios, and say we're going to put all of our money into that network and we're going to put prices down, and then in East Fishkill, where there isn't that level of competition. So it's an unfortunate thing to hear. I don't know, to be honest with you, why that would be the case. We have been making very significant investments in our infrastructure. We have a hybrid coax fiber network. Most of what you see is fiber, and then coming in the neighborhoods and into the home is the coax. We are making a lot of efforts to make improvements at the individual customer and neighborhood level. And as far as the pricing goes, I'll just talk about that quickly. We've tried really hard to hold down the price over the past 2 years. We've been facing a problem, as a lot of other companies in the industry have, which is the increasing cost of programming, particularly sports programming and live sports programming. We get charged a fee as a company to have the license to provide the content over our system to our customers. The cost of that license has gone up multiple times, 200%, 300%, 400% in some instances. We've tried to absorb those costs, but it's been difficult to do that. We are a publicly traded company. We have responsibilities, but at the same time, we need to find that balance to keep the prices as low as we can. So we've seen some price increases. Those price increases predominantly have come as a result of the live sporting costs that we've been facing. So at the same time, we're trying to add value to our customers. We've built out a very robust Wi-Fi network for our internet customers, which is free. So I don't know if you have it here in this room. I haven't checked, but when you're out and about, particularly in the business districts, you have access to Optimum Wi-Fi, which is free to our customers. We've done the applications for being able to view television anywhere in your home. We've made other investments as well. I won't go too deep into it, but I guess my answer after saying all of that is it's discouraging to hear anyone make that type of a complaint. And to answer your question, what you should do is what you just did. You've alerted me to it as a representative of the company. I've told the supervisor before if he has complaints, I'd like to hear about them.
Yeah,
I've already talked to someone here who's mentioned it to me as well. So you have my contact information. If it's you, if it's your neighbor, if it's something that's really compelling, I'd like to know about it so we can get folks out here to make sure it's being addressed.
And Dan, I would just, in that respect, I'd like to point out what's been nice about having you as our point person, because when I had people come and ask me questions about their bill or service, I just tell them to call you,
Yeah.
and I appreciate that kind of interaction.
Yeah, and if I don't have an answer, I'll find someone who does.
Okay. And especially, I would imagine, if there's like an outage, I think you need to know that, because there's going to be most likely some kind of a hardware issue, a tree, maybe a bad switch somewhere or something like that. I think you need to know about that rather quickly too.
And at the end, if there's disruption in critical communication
Yes.
technology for the town to respond to those types of instances, we absolutely need to know.
Okay.
Is the Wi-Fi free also for commercial?
Yes.
Or just private?
No, commercial.
Okay.
We can if you're a customer, we can come out and create a hotspot in your business. So if it's a hardware store or a barber shop or a pizzeria and you have customers congregating, we'll come in and we'll put a hotspot in your business so they can access the internet while they wait.
Thank you.
Just one question that Nick was kind of asked at the last work session. The 5%, is that just based on television or television and internet?
It's just based on television. The contract franchise that we have with the town is for video services. The company is regulated in different ways for different products, and we don't have the same type of regulatory relationship with the town for those other services. We do with the state and federal government, but not with the town.
Oh, so the state takes the fee?
No, there's no
Instead of
fees.
us taking the
No.
fee.
Well, there's taxes.
Right. Can they also add another building to the town municipal buildings? The Davis House isn't listed.
Which one? We just added, I think we just added Lime Hill. You're right, I don't think we added the Davis House. Would it be possible, Dan, to add another facility, town municipal building? Or would that be, or would that have to go back through all the?
No, it's certainly possible. I'd want to take a look at it. I'm not
Yeah,
familiar
let me take a look
if it's in a remote area and it creates some problems in terms of getting the plant there.
It's right in town.
Yeah,
We did that 2 years ago.
We'll take a look.
I'm trying to think, I'm not sure.
Well, it's not on the list.
Oh, we have service now. That was with Frontier.
We'll take a look at it, Dan, and I'll get back to you on that.
Sure.
Okay.
We did put internet.
All righty, anything else, Councilman? No? Anybody in the audience like to ask Cablevision a question? Now, Marty, you're going to have to share the microphone up there, so Dan, if you step to the side and let Marty come up.
When Cablevision first came into its beginning, you were supposed to pay for the Cablevision and not for commercials. It was supposed to be commercial free. And I don't understand how you're losing money if you got a commercial every 5 minutes. You got more commercials than you do have programming. And it stinks in my, yes, sir. I pay to watch a show or something. I don't pay for commercials, everything. That's your business. And you're making millions of dollars, so don't tell me that Cablevision's losing money.
Thank you, Marty.
You're welcome.
Anybody else in the, Dan, would you like to respond to that, or I guess we just say?
I work in government affairs. I
Yeah.
don't work in marketing and advertising, so I'll take that back to my colleagues in Bethpage and let them know about it.
Okay, tell Marty this stinks.
Got it. I don't like commercials either, by the way.
All right, anybody else in the audience would like to ask Dan any questions about Cablevision?
Good evening, Board. Ed Sloshow. I've been a resident of town of East Fishkill for 11 years. Just a simple question. In the last 2 years, my bill's actually gone up close to $25. for basically the same programming. I understand sports, but I'm not really understanding why everything else keeps going up. I know you gave an explanation, but as the councilman said, there needs to be some kind of balance. I'm sure people are willing to pay more for something if they're getting more value. Not getting more value, and the prices continue to increase. The other thing is, I believe channel here, 902 or 903, you're allowed to go on to the optimum channel, and you can add channels, and obviously you would pay an increase for the channels that you would add. It does not give you the ability to remove channels that you do not want to reduce your bill. So if that's something that could be addressed when you go back to home office, because you're getting a certain package, and to get something that you want, you have to buy things that you don't want in order to get what you want, and that's not right. There should be some way to get what you want and not pay for something that you don't want, and I think that would help in terms of billing, especially for seniors, veterans who are on fixed income. So, and regular working stiffs like the rest of us too. You know, an extra $250 to watch TV every year, you know, it's a budget buster to some people within the community. So just if you can address that, that would be appreciative. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you for that. You actually raised a number of points, and I'll try not to be too long on the answer, but it's a little complicated. Some of you in the room may have experienced over the past couple of years some period of time where you've lost channels on Cablevision's system. They've been blacked out. Fox, I think Fox 5 was the last one. Right around this time of year, we had the Yankees were in the playoffs, and we had Giants football games, and we lost the channel. We lost ABC the night of the Oscars. And there have been others since then, Channel 11, WPIX, and others. The reason that happens is, as I said earlier, we need licenses to be able to air the programming on our system. The dramatic increase in fees that these companies are looking for is cost prohibitive in our eyes. Again, we operate in a very competitive environment. If we were to agree to the fees that they want us to pay, we'd be losing a lot more customers than we are now. The other problem that we have, in addition to the fees, Disney is really particularly difficult on this, Viacom as well. If we want ESPN, if we want ABC on our system and we want to pay them for it, they say, well, you pay us this, and then in addition to paying us for this, we're going to give you 12 other channels that we want you to carry on your system. And we say, well, our customers only want this channel. And they say, well, you're not getting that channel unless you take all the others, so that they can sell the advertising, the commercials on those channels. It's a negotiation. It's a difficult negotiation. We try as hard as we can to keep those prices down. When you're negotiating with a gun to your head, and they say, you pay us this or we'll pull the channel, you're in a tough position. And when they pull the channel and they start running advertisements saying, if you want to watch the Oscars, call this number and get hooked up to Dish or Direct or Fios, it's a difficult market. We're trying to change that process. That process reflects the industry as it was 20 years ago, when we were the only show in town, or our predecessors here were the only show in town. Now it's a much more competitive environment, and it's that competition that should drive the prices. And when you're forced to negotiate with all of these large programming companies with a gun to your head, inevitably the costs are going to go up dramatically. And as I said earlier, we've been trying to keep those costs down. We've had to make some changes recently, but it's a dynamic that continues. It's a very complicated one, and I'd be happy to come back some other time and talk more about it. But I understand what you're saying. We hear that quite a bit, and it's really one of the fundamental issues that the company's looking at right now.
Can I just make a quick comment?
Yeah, quick, sure. Yeah.
I understand that, but I don't see why in my package I need Spanish soap operas, foreign language channels, shopping network, things that I'm not watching at all. If I want that, I would say I'll pay for it. But if I don't want it, there's got to be a balance somewhere.
Well,
I know you're under a
for an a la carte,
strict,
you just pick what you want, and that's it. Sure.
A la carte is something that's being discussed from the industry's perspective as well as from the regulatory perspective. But the answer, part of the answer, again, and I don't mean to sound too repetitive, is we have contractual requirements in some instances of what channels we put where. And if you want to get the silver or the value We have, in some instances, requirements to put channels that you have no interest at all in watching into that tier. So if you want to watch HBO, it's going to come with some other channels that maybe you're not interested in. The solution is an a la carte discussion where you can choose the channels that you want. That's a difficult discussion between the cable companies and the providers of the content, and it's being brokered to some extent down in Washington with the FCC. Thank you.
Dan, thank you very much for that. I mean, you really showed us a little bit more about it. Yes, sir.
Can I,
Oh, absolutely.
can I do it from here, or do I have to go?
No, you have to go up there.
That's the rules. This is my first time. Hi, my name is Ryan Dutcher. I just have a quick question. I don't think anybody addressed this. I travel a lot, so I'm never home, and that's where I have cable, internet, all that stuff, phone. I tried to decrease my bill since I don't watch it enough, and it actually was only $20 cheaper to get rid of cable down to their basic package. Because I was trying to decrease the other services got a higher price, and I had to pay these different fees. Could you educate me, explain?
I don't think you'll like the explanation, but I'll try. So Cablevision was the first company in the industry to introduce the triple play, the TV, the phone, and the internet. And what that did is it dramatically decreased the cost that you were paying for each service. And we're able to provide those decreases because of the business model for the costs that go into bringing the network into your homes. When we start tinkering with that triple play, the value from a business perspective gets changed, and we need to make that up in pricing. So you'll notice that you're actually, if you go online and look at our services, the best deal for you is to get the triple play. That's going to be the most cost effective, you know, even if you average it out over the 3 services. If you just want to get one service like the internet, it's still going to be, I think, a competitive price, but it's going to be a little more expensive than if you got it with all 3 services. So what's happening is if you start pulling away one of the services, we're making up for it a little bit, hopefully not too much, on the other services.
Okay. Dan, thank you very much. If it's okay with the audience, if you have any more questions, or if you want to send me an email or give me a call, and I'll give you Dan's contact number. Again, as I said, I found since Dan's been on board, he's been very responsive to any of our questions. So if that's okay, I'd entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Public hearing is now closed. Do I have a motion to adopt the resolution and renew the franchise agreement with Cablevision?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Abstain.
Opposed? And 1 abstention. Thank you, Tom. Motion carried. Thank you very much, and thank you, Dan. Oh, there he is. I thought he took off already. All righty. Next public hearing on the agenda for tonight is a public hearing to consider the application of the Muse at Hopewell for a workforce housing project. Do I have a motion to open the public hearing?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. The public hearing is now open, and Councilman Franco is back on board, and the extension was only for the previous public hearing.
Thank you.
Before we get going with this, I'd like to just make a couple comments. A little history on the special permit application. The special permit application was actually developed a few years ago to address a shortage in workforce housing. The first proposal that was looked at in the town of East Fishkill for this sort of a project was over at Turner Street by Route 82 and Turner Street up past the Stockyard Restaurant. That was the first place that was proposed. Unfortunately, due to some wetland issues, that proposal never went forth. Workforce housing that we're discussing, that we've been looking for, is really, it's housing for our police, housing for our volunteer firefighters and other professions. This is what started this whole ball rolling. And just really quick, one thing I do have to mention about our volunteer firefighters, that the town of East Fishkill has a volunteer fire department is very impressive. A lot of other towns don't have that. They have paid. But one of the things that you see in the volunteer fire department is young people coming up through the ranks and training, and we see them like at the meetings, and they're very, very interested. But what happens with any young person, they get to a point in their life where it's time to move out. You're older, you got a job, but you can't afford a house. What we've been seeing over the last few years is people that are really critical to our community that can't afford to stay here. So they move. When they move, you lose somebody like a volunteer firefighter. I can't tell you how many of our police officers that I talk to would love to live here, but some of them can't afford to live here. So when we look for workforce housing, we're looking for workforce housing for, the people, the workforce people, the police, the volunteer firefighters, the mechanic down the road. And this is the type of housing that we're looking for. Now, this application also provides housing for seniors, and it's got a unit, 2 units for, I'm not sure how they're broken up, units for the disabled. And this was all done on a reduced footprint from a previous application, which I thought was good. Because one of the things that I saw in the previous application that I didn't like was how close it was to the residences back on Shadow. This is made for a smaller footprint, which I thought was good, which would give more of a buffer area, because obviously when you live in a residential area, you like to enjoy your peace and quiet. And I thought that the improved buffer was a good thing. When we considered this workforce housing special permit, the criteria for this permit was they should be near the hamlet, should be located on a state road, and had to have sewer and water. So these are the criteria that we look for, and as I said, there had been another application at another location. Rents for this project, the rents for these townhouses are running $1,000 to $1,400 a month, which is actually competitive with some of the apartments, local apartments. They do have a senior and disabled component, and their 1 and 2 bedrooms range from $345 up to $955 per month. But one of the things we've seen, we've been through this a couple times before. We've reviewed some other applications, and one of the things that always came out was good management is critical to making this kind of a project work. And we've done our research, and I know a lot of my board members have done the research, and Kearney Realty really stands out from everybody I've spoken to. They do a good job, and they're an excellent management company. And the projects we've looked at, some of my board members traveled around, we've spoken to people. Management is the key, and that's one thing I want to say for Kearney Realty. I believe that they have that expertise. That's really all I want to say as an opening, but I just want to give everybody an idea of where this workforce housing came from. So with that, I know Mr. Kearney wanted to say a few words.
Please. Good evening, Supervisor Hickman, members of the Town Board of East Fishkill. My name is Ken Carney. I'm here tonight with my son and partner, Sean Carney, here with Jeff Cantamo of the firm Insight Engineering, our project engineer. AJ Capola is the project architect sitting over in the corner. Just a little bit about our company. It was started by my wife and I about 25 years ago. Our first affordable housing development was here in Dutchess County in the city of Beacon. We did well with it. The city encouraged us. We bought a couple city-owned properties, and now 20 years later, we still own them, and they're doing quite well. We work primarily in Dutchess County and in northern Westchester. A little bit about us and how we operate. The Carney Group and its affiliates, Turn Construction and Parkview Development, develops, constructs, and more importantly, manages its properties. We employ an on-site manager. We use a superintendent who lives on the grounds and is available 24/7. We use a hands-on management style. This management plan includes rigorous background checks as well as personal interviews. There's an interview process. There's a rental application that's submitted. It's checked for completeness. It's checked to see if, in fact, somebody can indeed afford the apartment. And then we perform the various background checks. And at that point, the prospective tenants come in for a personal interview and possibly a second interview. So a little bit about the Muse at Hopewell. The Muse at Hopewell is a 68-unit affordable housing development located on a 9.2-acre site adjacent to New York State Route 82 in the town of East Fishkill. The proposed site plan includes 26 townhomes. What we've done is Out of the 26 townhomes, 14 of the townhomes are two-bedroom, and 12 are three-bedroom. 12 of the two-bedroom units will rent for approximately $1,000 plus utilities, and the utility allowances go up and down. That's why I say approximately $1,000, and will be available to families with incomes up to $49,860 annually, which is 60% of the area median income. And it's important to remember, because I'll get back to that when I compare it to the previous proposal that was in front of you a couple years ago. 10 of the three-bedroom units will rent for approximately $1,130 monthly plus utilities, and are available to families with an income up to $53,880 annually. There are 4 remaining townhomes. Those 4 remaining townhomes, 2 of the 2 bedrooms will rent for $1,275 monthly, with income limits up to $74,790. That's 90% of the area median income, and the remaining 2 3-bedroom townhomes will rent for $1,375 monthly and are available to families with incomes up to $80,820. The site plan also includes 2 two-story buildings located toward the rear of the site. We're here tonight with our not-for-profit partner, Abilities First, Executive Director Jeff Fox and Ellen Griffin. Abilities First is located very close to Town Hall in town of Poughkeepsie over Rocker Road. They run a school and programs, and they serve the developmentally disabled population. What we are proposing here is to set aside 20 to 25% of the units for the developmentally disabled population. Jeff can talk a little bit about some of the services that they will provide and some of the tenants that they feel will be targeted for here. What we've done with the 2 buildings in the rear, the one building right there, it's set up similar to some of our senior builds. It's all 1-bedrooms, 24 1-bedrooms, approximately 700 square feet apiece, with a center loaded corridor with an elevator. In addition, what we've done off the back, we've built an office just for Abilities First. We built an office for a case management worker and also a community room, especially just for that population. Their case manager will provide services for the population. The services could range from daily activities or maybe weekly or monthly activities, helping balance a checkbook and so forth. The 14 to 17 units that we're setting aside for the developmentally disabled will be mainly, let's say 14 1-bedrooms and 3 2-bedrooms. We also have, they don't have to be in that one building. The other building has 14 2-bedrooms and 4 1-bedrooms. So a senior or a person with a special needs population could also rent an apartment in the other building as well. Off the other building, we have a community room, and in the community room is where you pick up your mail. There's a community laundry, and more importantly, we have our management office. The management office is manned 5 days a week by one of my employees. I have a regional manager who reports to me, and then the on-site manager reports to our regional manager. When the development is finished, Sean and I are actively engaged in the rent-up and the interview process. Until the property stabilizes, when I say stabilizes, normally the first year, year and a half, 2 years, our regional manager is there every day, and we're there quite often. We continue to be involved in the management. As I said, right now I have probably 16 employees, and I would say that the bulk of those employees are in our management company as opposed to our construction or our development company. I just want to talk a little bit about how this proposal differs from the previous proposal. The previous proposal had envisioned 50% of the units were going to be 3 bedrooms, 50%. That, in my humble opinion, is a difficult model to manage. We have dropped the number of 3-bedrooms down from 30 some odd down to 12. In addition, what we've done is we've raised the income limits. On the 2- and 3-bedroom units, we've raised the income limits. I believe the previous proposal had income limits down, instead of the median incomes I was just mentioned to you for the 2-bedrooms up to 49,860 and the 3-bedrooms up to 53,880. I believe the previous proposal had much lower income limits. So what we've done is we've redesigned this. We figured that this is a different model, and the model envisions the townhomes, which we've built before, and from a management standpoint, it works well, but it replicates home ownership, and you eliminate common area hallways and so forth. In addition to lowering the amount of 3-bedrooms and also the raising the income limits on the 2- and 3-bedrooms, we've also decided to partner with Abilities First, as I've mentioned, so they will be our not-for-profit partner in this development long-term. Long-term. It's a long-term commitment. Let's talk about the financing. This development, as most of our other developments, are funded with the tax credit program. The tax credit program was born out of the 1986 Tax Reform Act. It was signed into law in 1986 on a year-by-year basis. They wanted to see how it worked and historically if it was going to work. It was actually during the Reagan administration. It worked well, so well that in the mid-90s it was signed into permanent law. The way the tax credit program works is this. Tax credits are allocated to each state based on your population. And then the state puts out an RFP. It's very, very competitive, and you submit an application for the tax credits, and once you're awarded. What happens with the tax credits is, in theory, let's say you invest $10 million into a development for affordable housing for incomes at 60%, below 60% of the area median income. So you take that $10 million worth of tax credits, and you can't sell them. So you form a limited partnership. And the way the limited partnership is structured, it's a 15-year limited partnership. And Sean and I are the general partners on the Kearney side. The Abilities First will have their entity as well. They will also be a co-general partner. So you have two general partners, two co-general partners that are responsible and put up all the guarantees for construction completion, daily operation, and continued maintenance of the project for the first 15 years. You must. Everything I have is on the line. Those guarantees to the limited, let me go back a minute. What happens with the tax credits now, you form a limited partnership, and we take in a limited partner. In the last 6 deals we've done, our limited partner has been TD Bank. And TD Bank pays us, for example, we're about to close a deal in Portland. We're going to, TD Bank will pay us approximately 97 cents on a dollar. So for $10 million, they will give us 97 cents for every dollar we have of the $10 million. And we form the limited partnership. What TD Bank gets is they get the tax credits that flow to them, and they continue to monitor the property through their syndicator, which is Raymond James Tax Credit Funds out of Tampa, Florida. The way that the partnership is structured, it's quite simple. It sounds complicated, but it's actually quite simple. We have a responsibility. They give us $10 million or they give us, 97 cents on the dollar, and we give them the $10 million with the tax credits. And what we give them is a guarantee that the development will be built according to the way it's planned. The development will be run according to the way it's run. And at the end of 15 years, we negotiated up front that the limited partners leave. They leave. And the Kearneys and Abilities First will continue to own and operate the community long term. I started thinking about the next generation years ago. I mentioned the properties in Beacon. One of the buildings is owned by Sean's brother, my other son, and the boys have been getting involved in ownership structures of some of my other partnerships. We're in this long term. So the limited partnership with the tax credits works for 15 years. But in essence, the co-general partners put up all the guarantees, and our feet are held to the fire. It's simple. And if something goes wrong, we're responsible. The tax credit guys, TD Bank wants to know one thing. They want to know that every year those tax credits are flowing. So the tax credits flow for the first 10 years. But then there's an extended use period of another 5. So TD Bank will get all their tax credits for the first 10 years, and then years 11 to 15, they stay in the partnership. And like I said, at the end of year 15, there's a agreed upon price where they will exit for not much money. And then we will buy them out, and we will continue to operate the development. This tax credit program has different models. We've used different models. We've been successful with this program. Like I said, TD Bank, we did our first deal with them in 2009, and this is our 6th deal, and they keep calling us to do more deals. The tax credits are allocated by the New York State Division of Housing. It is very competitive. You have to have a good reputation, and you have to have a good reputation for delivering on time, and not only that, but for managing your properties correctly. So, our philosophy is simple. We set it up to ensure that the community will be managed properly for years to come. The next generation of my family is in the business. We're not going anywhere. We're not flippers. We're not disappearing in a couple of years. We're not. Like I said, I can name different properties that I'm involved in. Up in Catskill, we bought this property in 1997. Beacon, we bought these properties in 1990. Yorktown, we did a property back in 2001. Somers, town of Poughkeepsie, city of Poughkeepsie. We're going to be closing in Pauling and so forth. So that's what we do. It sounds complicated, but it's really quite simple. And what's simple about it? Is you have to do what you say you're going to do. And that's it. If you do what you say you're going to do, and you're good at it, and you say you're going to do good, then you're fine. Then you keep moving, and you do another one. But when you stop and you don't perform is the time that everything falls apart. TD Bank goes away, the state goes away, the support goes away. So at this point, I would like to introduce Jeff Fox. He's the Executive Director for Abilities First, and Jeff is going to say a couple words about his involvement and his company. Jeff?
Good evening. Thanks for the opportunity to speak to you tonight, Town Supervisor, members of the board. As Ken said, my name's Jeff Fox. I'm the Executive Director of Abilities First. Abilities First, I'll give you a little bit of background information. Used to be called Rehab Programs. You may be more familiar with that name. We changed the name in 2008. Been operating in Dutchess County for over 50 years. We employ about 500 staff members. We touch the lives of about 1,200 people with disabilities every day. We are a full-service human services organization, and by that I mean we serve anybody with any kind of intellectual or developmental disability, and we start at about 2 or 3 years old and all the way up to end of life. Our main offices are in the town of Poughkeepsie. We have about 35 locations around Dutchess County, and we also intend to be here for the long term. Let me tell you this, that 30 years ago, if you're a person with an intellectual disability, you probably lived in an institution. You probably had nothing meaningful to do, and you probably had no contact with the community or the outside world. We moved into another phase, and you probably are familiar with this, starting in the 1980s, where people moved out of institutions and started living in what are called group homes. Right? There's a lot of group homes around and have been for a long time. Those group homes will still continue to exist, but the federal government and the state government now has a couple big problems with group homes. Number one, if you're a person with a disability living in a group home, the only other people living in that group home also have disabilities. So you're still segregated from communities and from the rest of the world. The other problem is that they're very expensive. We've been taxing the state and federal Medicaid system and straining it very hard, And in about 2008, that system kind of came to a crash. This model that we're talking about, where we're combining with people like the Carneys on developing these properties, is an answer to these things. It's uncertified, it's much more cost effective, and it puts people with disabilities in a community, not up on a hill somewhere, in a community where their neighbors are anybody else in the world. And I'll tell you, I'm not necessarily a model citizen. Maybe, maybe I am. Running a company, I've got a PhD. I worked in this field my whole life, and for the first 10 or 15 years, I worked in group homes, in adult day programs as a job coach, and I would have qualified based on my income to live here. Mm-hmm. That would have kept me in a community like East Fishkill. I brought a number of people here tonight who also support our cause. We have a small but very important role in this project, and just want to thank you for your time.
I have just a quick question.
Yes.
And you said that there's a difference between what you do and what they do in the group home. So
Yes.
in your community, what do they do? Do they work together? Do they interact with everybody in the community? Do they have
Yes.
tasks?
Well, yes. I'll tell you this, that we have about 100 people right now living in our residential program. About half of those people are living in setting, are probably capable of moving into a setting like this and living on their own. We would still be involved developing individualized plans and wrapping services around them through programs like community rehabilitation, where somebody may get anywhere from a couple of hours a week up to 20 or more hours a week of a one-on-one staff member helping them with things like medication, shopping, cooking and cleaning, based on what their needs are. The people that we would have here would be employed at some level. None of them would have criminal histories of any kind. They're people who I think anybody would be proud to have as a neighbor. And they're people that we all know, and many of us have known for many, many years and consider friends. Yeah.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
All righty. Thank you very much for that presentation. It's very insightful. I'd just like to ask, first I'll ask the board if you have any questions, then I'll ask the public if they have any questions or comments, and then we'll come back to the board. So with that, I'd like to open. Does the board have any questions?
Yeah, I'd like to read something first. After watching the last public hearing at the planning board and talking to some people, some friends had called, they were concerned. I think it's very important to reiterate exactly what we're trying to accomplish here, or what Mr. Carney is trying to accomplish here with workforce housing. And I'm going to ask a question of him after I read this. This is just a definition of workforce. The term workforce is meant to connote those who are gainfully employed, a group of people who are not typically understood to be the target of affordable housing programs. Workforce housing then implies an altered or expanded understanding of affordable housing. Workforce housing is commonly targeted as essential workers in a community, i.e. police officers, firemen, teachers, nurses, medical personnel. And with that, Mr. Carney, I'd like to ask you, the projects you have that pertain to workforce housing, can you tell us some of the professions of your tenants in the workforce houses that you run?
Sure. Here in Dutchess, we have quite a few health aides. We have health aides, a few associated with Vassar Hospital, and then we have health aides that work for private companies. We have nurses' aides and actually some practical nurses. We have correction officers, New York State correction officers. We have some caseworkers who work for another not-for-profit in Dutchess County, Mental Health of America. We will have a couple of people that I know of work for the probation department for Dutchess County. We have a clerk for New York State DOT. We have receptionists. We have school bus drivers, customer service reps. I know one girl, I remember interviewing her. She drives over to Woodstock every day. She's some type of audio-visual designer. We have a machine operator, landscapers. Up in Greene County, we have, well, we did have a fellow. He just passed. He was, for many years, he was the fellow who worked for Greene County Office of the Aging doing the Meals on Wheels. Price Chopper was built right down the street from our place up in Catskill. Quite a few people are employed there, butchers and so forth and so on. And, you know, over the years, and I think what's important to remember, I talk about the income limits. This program is set up that people can stay. Every year we recertify your income. People can stay. You can stay as long as you can make up to 130% of their area median income. What happens is, you know, your rent may go up a little bit. It may or may not, depending on how much your income went up. But you're encouraged to further on in your career, in the job, and so forth. You know, I've had senior citizens that have inherited money from other sources, and they come in and they get recertified, and all of a sudden, you know, they've picked up $300,000 or $400,000 in assets. They don't have to leave, as long as you stay below 130% of the area median income. I know up in Catskill, I remember a guy. He was a manager of one of the movie theaters at one time. We have a fellow over here in the town of Poughkeepsie. He was a manager, assistant manager over here of one of the theaters on Route 9. So it's a mix such as that.
And regardless, they have to pass the criteria that you set up.
Right, and the criteria it's consistent. I mean, it's consistent, and we have to be consistent. And what it is it starts with the background checks. It starts with the background checks, and it also starts with their application to see if their application is complete. And then we have to ensure that what they put on the application is what the background checks show. Because immediate grounds for denial is if they were not truthful on their application. And then, yes, then we go through the whole process. And, you know, that's what is important to remember is, you know, anybody can apply. Anybody can apply. And I went through this down at Somers. I went through this down in Yorktown. And I said, anybody can apply. But everybody is going to go through the exact same process. And it's a consistent process of credit, criminal background, previous landlord history, and interviews. And this, you know, you get the sense after an interview, sometimes people realize that maybe this system or this development is not, it's not going to work for them. It may not. You know, it may not be for them. So they will look at it and say, okay, you know, this guy asked too many questions. You know, I don't want a superintendent walking around every Saturday and Sunday morning. So, you know, some people move on and some don't. So that's an example of some of the jobs that we have. All right.
Okay.
Anybody else?
Thank you. Any other questions from the board?
I got a couple.
Sure.
The big thing's on the money.
Yes.
What's the minimum amount of money you can make to live in there? Minimum. You say you can't make more than $50,000, $60,000, $70,000. Is
Right.
that a combined income between two people moving in, or
That's
one
correct.
person?
It's all the income in the household.
Okay. There's like a $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 cap. What's the minimum? That's, I mean, the word out there that everybody hears is the word Section 8. And that scares everybody. And I understand that, and if you read Facebook, that's what everybody says going in there. I understand it's workforce housing, but can you explain that difference a little bit
Yeah,
to people?
I can. There is a program and it's a program that you can seek funding for, which would tie Section 8 to a development. And you would apply for that, and if you make very little money, you're eligible to move into an apartment because Section 8 goes with that apartment, and therefore most of your rent is paid for by virtue of moving into that apartment. That's not our funding source. We're not using that funding source. Let me be clear. We're not. We're not using Section 8 funding. The question, what is the minimum amount needed to move in? We don't want people paying more than 48% of their income for rent and utilities. So let's figure this out. If you had you would, minimum, I would say for the townhomes, so it's 1,100 times 12, 13, 14. Just to pay your rent, you're in the 30s. You're in the 30s. You have to, because your rent and your utilities, you can't exceed 48% of your income. You can't.
Well, and if I just may say, it's like when I bought my house, the bank looks at the house, they look at the mortgage, and say, this is how much your income is, and they have, what'd you say the level is? You can't pay more than 48% towards your dwelling?
48%. What the ideal is 30%.
Yeah.
Ideally, everybody, they don't want you to pay, in a perfect world, nobody would pay more than 30%.
So when you interview these people, you obviously have to do an income check, and you have to verify that they make enough money to pay the rent every month.
Right. And in addition to that, the application will state the minimum amount needed for a one-bedroom, the minimum amount needed for a two-bedroom, and minimum amount needed for a three-bedroom. I can get those specific answers, but that's it. It's 40. You can't go more. You can't spend more than 48%, including utilities and rent. So.
Okay. And then going in, you said your place is, my file is reviewed every year. If I move in,
That's
I
correct.
apply.
Every year you get recertified.
So I can be thrown out yearly?
What you can be thrown out monthly.
Okay.
If you
He could get thrown out.
I can get thrown out tomorrow. Okay, that's what I wanted to know. That's the answer.
Now, if I make too much money, I'm moved out of the development too.
No.
If I don't make,
Back to the thrown out part. Let's get back to the thrown out.
Let's go back to that.
why can I get thrown out? There's what I want.
You can get thrown out if a tenant is not complying with our rules and regulations. There's a process we start. We start the process. We will call the tenant in and remind them of what we all agreed to and so forth. And then we follow that up. We document that with a letter. That usually does it. It usually does. If not, and listen, I have this sometimes. I just went through this in a senior complex, okay, where somebody is kind of misbehaving. And, we sent them a serious letter that they had so many days to, correct the problem, and they're not, so they're being asked to leave. And they have a lease, but we have grounds because they are not, they're we believe they're in violation of their lease. So I don't have to wait that year. I don't have to wait a year. The year is every year under the tax credit program, we must recertify you. So all the income documentation, what we do that through third-party reports. We send out a third-party report. We don't take the tenant's tax returns as gospel. It's third-party verification. We send it out to their employer and so forth, seniors. We send it out to Social Security, and we get an updated information every year to see, is this person making what they say they're making? And in some cases, the employer has to estimate, they might make X amount of dollars in overtime and so forth. So every year is really about the recertification for the tax credit law in order to ensure that that person fits within those income brackets. But we don't wait a year to address a tenant issue. We don't.
Yeah, but can I get thrown out for my making too much or too little? each year?
At the end of every year, if you're above 130%, yes. At the end of the year. Now, you're supposed to notify us.
Yep.
You're supposed to notify us if your income goes up dramatically, up to, like I said, above 130%. You're supposed to notify us as per your lease. But let's say you forget. Then when you come in for your yearly certification, we would tell you that I don't think I've ever had that issue. We're not up to 130%. People's incomes have gone up, no doubt. Their incomes are gone up, they're above the income limits, and they can stay. But I don't believe I've had anybody go to 130% and ask them to leave.
Okay. I got two others.
Sure.
Residency, is there any there's no preference towards East Fishkill residents first?
There is no preference. There is no preference.
Okay. And then is there a limit how many people can live in an apartment?
Yes.
If I've got a one-bedroom, can I put my 12 people in there?
You cannot.
Okay.
It's 2 people per bedroom. So maximum for a 1-bedroom is 2. Maximum for a 2-bedroom is 4. And the maximum for a 3-bedroom is 6. That's not what we normally see. We normally see less than that.
That's all the questions. That's it.
I have comments, but I could wait for public.
Any other comments before we go to the public?
Stop the public.
Okay. Anybody, thank you, Ken. Anybody in the audience would like to speak on this application? And I would just say, if you do come up to speak on the application and I forgot with the last public hearing on the Cablevision contract, please sign in. There's a little pen or a pencil over there, and there's a pad. So if you'd like to speak for or against, please step up and just sign in. Well, we know you. We didn't. There's no pad?
They have to work.
Who took the pad?
Somebody took the pad.
Where's the Cablevision guy? He probably took the pad.
Probably Zingone.
Ah, there you go.
Probably Joe Zingone.
Oh, Joe took the pad with there you go. All right. Well, we'd like to thank Abilities First for donating the pad. Good night, Marty.
Names on it.
Yeah, I feel bad for the Cablevision guy now. All right, anybody would like to speak, please? Yes, ma'am.
So I sign here?
Yep, just take a minute to sign in if you would.
Now, I had something planned because I'm not good at off the cuff. My name is Lisa Dwyer. By the way, I've been here resident for 30-something years. I had a question before I start spouting off some numbers. And I think maybe, Mr. Cassidy, this might have been what you were asking. What is the minimum income limit? So if I did the math, you had mentioned some of the apartments and you mentioned the income limits. But when I tried to do as much research as I could, the minimum income limit that I found was actually $31,000 a year. And I didn't know if that was true or if that was from the old plan.
Okay. We'll
so
look
just
into that. What I took from it would be what the monthly rent or the annual rent was, and then it would be percentage of that as
Okay,
is
so
calculated.
I'll just go ahead and
Sure,
read
go
my
right
thing
ahead.
and
Yep.
apologize
We'll
then
take
if
some
there's
notes. Nope.
any inaccuracies. I'm here tonight to urge you not to grant a special permit for the Muse on Joe's Mother's Road. My first concern is for the children of East Fishkill. The developer claims there will be only 21 school-aged children as a result of this 68-unit complex, even though there is a capacity for about 78 children, if you count bedrooms and people. If you look at impact studies done in East Fishkill, inevitably Wappinger Schools says that they can accommodate more students. The problem is that the question that matters isn't being asked. Can the district accommodate more students in East Fishkill schools? The answer to that is no. The developer spouted a capacity number for Gayhead, pointing out that it is above the current enrollment number, so there must be room. That may be a fire code capacity number, but we don't just cram kids in rooms and call it a school. Why do we have kids in modulars if we are under capacity? He neglected to tell you the capacity numbers for Van Wyck and John Jay because they don't fit the argument. Enrollment is higher than those capacity numbers. Kids just don't come in elementary school size. In case you didn't know, there is an active committee called the District Advisory Facilities Committee to look at redistricting East Fishkill students to Wappingers and Poughkeepsie to alleviate overcrowding. I want my kids and our kids to go to school here. I hope you do too. My next concern is one for the residents of this project. Can they afford to live here? The developer mentioned in his presentation last time and again tonight that the income limits of the apartments being offered are at 60% of the median income. The issue I have is it's the median income of Dutchess County, not East Fishkill. The median income of Dutchess County is $71,000. 60% of that is $42,000, which is one of the numbers he mentioned tonight. The median income of East Fishkill is $97,000. 60% of that is $58,000. From what I understand, 42 of the apartments being offered, or somewhere around there, is going to people at an income around $31,000, which is 32% of the median income of East Fishkill. So after they pay their rent, they still have insurance, health care, car payments, food, utilities, etc. Are we just financially strapping them to their apartment and not letting them be part of our community? Let's be honest, East Fishkill can get expensive at times. Personally, I travel to Fishkill because AMP's more expensive than other grocery stores. And I try to shop local at True Value and Williams, but sometimes Home Depot's just cheaper. Are we also stranding them here in the hamlet? The loop bus only runs to Hopewell Junction from the west. It travels down Route 52, not 82. It stops on Palin Road just before 82 and stops at the AMP, and that's it. There'll be no way for parents to get to Gayhead, Fishkill Plains, or Van Wyck. No way for people to get to the library, town hall, fire station, police station, community center, Red Wing, Lime Kiln, Leetown, anywhere in Stormville, or to any of the various churches in our community.
Excuse me, but they wouldn't drive?
Well, they could, but
I know a lot of us, we don't have a lot of transportation in town of East Fishkill.
No, I understand. Yeah. I'm just saying, if we're talking about lower income limits, maybe they can't afford a car. I don't.
I think,
because they were, the parking discussion last time at the planning meeting was 2 spots per apartment, but a bunch of them are being land banked because they may not need to use them all right now.
They were,
so, I think it was 109 spots are actually being paved. So I was kind of under the assumption that possibly there might be some people that don't drive. Okay. Last meeting, there was discussion about possibly a bus stop being added, but you can add a bus stop, but if it's not taking you where you need to go, then what's the point? Again, kind of assuming there's people without cars or children, what have you. No car, no bus, let's walk, no sidewalks. Route 82 is dangerous enough for cars, but if you increase foot traffic at all, it just gets more dangerous for everybody, and especially in the winter. And on top of it, I also remembered hearing at a previous meeting, you actually were informing a gentleman that was complaining about the suicide lane in Hopewell in the intersection of Fishkill Road, and you agreed that there was a problem at that intersection of Fishkill Road, but that because it's a state road, we have no jurisdiction. So,
well, we're working with DOT on the whole strip.
Okay, even if, but that intersection aside, even if we wanted sidewalks, I don't even know if that's under our
it'd be a joint DOT
place to say
project.
We have to have sidewalks if we want this plan to go through. As far as taxes, Mr. Carney mentioned tonight again and last time about tax credits and tax incentives. It's not for any of the taxpayers, it's for the investors. My concern with the taxes is if, last meeting, he was asked if they were going to negotiate a pilot agreement with the town. The response was, we haven't decided yet. I could pretty much guess what it would be, because why would you not negotiate an agreement and try to get more tax breaks? But if you negotiate a pilot agreement and the school district loses money, who's going to pay for the kids to go to school? The taxpayers. And in East Fishkill, I don't know if you know, recently the school district came out with their numbers. The tax rate's going to be 3.5% instead of 2.5% because assessments everywhere else but East Fishkill went down. So we're already getting hit over and over again here. And so I applaud the connection with Abilities First. My question as far as Abilities First is, there's 25% set aside. Could it be more then, if there's more Abilities First clients, for lack of a better word? Can it be more than 25% Abilities First? I think that would be fantastic. And also, you had mentioned early before the public comments that this plan was to provide housing for our volunteers, firemen, and police. But if there's no preference given to East Fishkill residents, how can we guarantee that they're actually the ones that are going to get it?
We can't,
So
but we would hope that they would be.
we would hope.
Yes, absolutely.
But-
You know, this is a free market system, and I know that because of the funding, they can't.
Right.
But we certainly would hope that our people and our municipal employees would be looked at favorably.
Well, I still urge you to reject the proposal. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, excuse me, sure, if you'd like to respond, absolutely.
I just wanted to just remind everybody that at 25% of the units being ours, it would be highly unlikely for any of the residents who are in our units to have children, which I think cuts down on the number of kids going to school. I also wanted to mention that we had a grant authorized by the Department of Transportation for a 16-passenger bus that we're expecting delivery of next month. And although our original purpose was to transport our folks, you know, with disabilities that don't have access to cars or have trouble taking public transportation, we're looking at ways that would allow us to use this for other people as well. So everything about our system right now is about how to integrate people with disabilities with everybody else. So we think that would also substantially cut down on traffic and the number of vehicles.
You could take seniors along, that would be living there also.
Yes.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
good, thank you.
Good evening, Supervisor, Town Board members. My name is Ed Sloshower. I've been a resident, again, I'll repeat myself, Town of East Fishkill for the record.
Did you sign
for the
in?
past 11 years. Yes, sir, I did. Ms. Dwyer hit on a lot of points I was going to comment on, so if I do sound a little repetitive at times, I do apologize, but I want to bring up a couple of other issues about the potential project. Safety and traffic is a concern of mine. Actually, last Thursday, drove my daughter to dance class in the town, and as you're driving west, and you have a little bit of a hill, you can kind of see down. Coming east on 82 into town from the direction of the complex was bumper-to-bumper traffic at about 5:45 on a Thursday. At the planning meeting last week, several residents that live right across the street and own businesses at Oasis and the driving school complex made some comments that it's almost impossible right now to get out of their driveway within a reasonable time making a left or a right. Sometimes you're sitting there 2, 3 minutes, 4 minutes, 5 minutes, 6 minutes. That may not seem like a long time, but when you're sitting there in your car, 5 minutes can feel like an eternity.
And I did see that was noted in the traffic study.
When you're trying to make a left.
That there was peak periods where there was going to be a wait, I think it was an F.
Right, and there's right now there's a long period of time. So we're increasing, some traffic there. The turn, there was safety issues with, again, some of the residents mentioning that some kids use and cut across their property and then go across because there's no sidewalks and different things to get to Oasis. So that was a major concern. So I feel we're adding a lot more congestion in that vicinity with the complex. Even if we're adding public transportation, that again is going to cause more congestion if there's a bus stop there, because the bus has to stop, traffic has to back up, wait for people to get on, get off. If some are either handicapped, and if they're getting on, they're going to possibly wheelchair to get on. I don't know, again, in terms of the residents, if it's wheelchair-bound residents or not, I don't know. But again, it's still going to tie up traffic for a significant amount of time, especially during rush hours. And I know we brought up traffic studies immensely at the planning hearing, and a lot of people complaining that, well, it's only an additional 30 cars between 2 and 4 in the afternoon. And there's a lot of disagreement pertaining to that. So I actually drove to the property myself to kind of get a good look at it based on the plans, and back and forth at a couple of different times a day. And again, some times of the day, less congested. You can make the turn and you can drive through, and other parts of the day, you're sitting and you're waiting. So I don't say it's a crapshoot, but timing is everything, so they say. The other thing that concerns me with traffic and safety is whether there's 21 kids, 30 kids, 50 kids, whatever the amount is, was mentioned at the last meeting. And on the last plan that was filed, and I don't think anything has changed, is that the Wappinger Central School District will not be going into the complex to pick up any of the students for any of the schools, whether it's elementary, middle school, or high school. When I had asked that question, it was mentioned, well, we're going to put a bus stop, the kids can be picked up on 82. Now, that does not sit well with me, and I mentioned that last time. Where are these kids going to wait for a bus? Again, there's no sidewalk, there's Joe Mother's Road, there's no place for the kids to be picked up.
Where do kids get picked up on 82?
Okay.
Where do they get picked up on 82? I'm not familiar where the bus would stop. I guess the bus would go along 82, it would stop.
Well, usually at the corner, if there's a street coming down, so the parents will either sit there in their cars and wait. I mean, I don't, logistically, where that would be, if there was going to be an entrance, if Joe's Mother's Road was going to continue to be the entrance, and that's going to be a bus stop where the kids are going to be picked up. In turn, that's additional, congestion, and again, from a safety issue. I took a look at that road area there. I don't know where you're going to logistically put a sidewalk. You'd have to cut into the property to put a sidewalk. And having kids standing on a sidewalk on that very busy road, I believe, is a serious, danger situation for elementary school kids and even parents and adults. Because if you put a sidewalk there, people are going to use it. There's a lot of traffic. We have a lot of large commercial vehicles that utilize 82 cutting across to get to Route 9. I just don't feel, from a safety standpoint, there would be protection for children and pedestrians over there. And kids being picked up, again, bus is going to have to stop, more congestion. Also, your power lines are sitting right there. If you take a look up, I mean, I don't know in terms of code where they need to be away from people, but your power lines are probably no more than 15 or 18 feet, maybe 20 feet tops. So you're going to be standing under power lines. And then weather conditions. If we have a snowstorm and the snow is plowed on 82, where is the snow going to go? It's going to go this way. Excuse me. It's going to go this way, and it's going to cover the entire sidewalk, or the proposed sidewalk that would go there. So we have bad storms. That pedestrian walkway is going to be covered.
And somebody's going to come out and have
somebody's going to have to come out and clean it. But again, logistically, how close to the road?
Yeah.
So again, it's just from a safety issue, because you're going to have big plows coming down. I mean, I'm on a street, but unfortunately, I've had a couple of times the plow took out my mailbox just because heavy snow couldn't really gauge the road.
Right.
So again, that's a hazard and a safety concern. The other thing with regards to traffic, if everyone isn't aware, but the Wappinger Central School District is moving the bus depot to Fishkill Plains Elementary School, and the overload is going to Van Wyck. So at any given point during the day, we're going to have an additional 100 to 150 buses coming through 82 and the corridor there. So that's something else that has to be considered with regards to traffic congestion, for the particular area. Bear with me for 1 second. Ms. Dwyer brought up potential overcrowding of the schools. That has to be factored in, especially if the applicant is going to apply for a pilot program, because if no taxes are being paid, we cannot continue to incur these increases. I just got my school tax bill due, on the 9th, 3.5%. So again, that's an impact to our seniors, to our veterans. Okay, the Wappinger Central School District just passed an exemption for our veterans to reduce their tax obligations to the school district at a board meeting last year. We're picking up the difference there, and well, we should, because the veterans do deserve that. But again, if we're not having any additional revenue from that particular property, that's an additional burden on the rest of the residents. Ms. Dwyer also mentioned on the district's facilities committee, the applicant did bring up some information on a leaf report that was provided, but that report is back from 2012. And as of today, as far as I know, the applicant has not had any conversations with the superintendent or the board president with regards to this particular project, which I think he should, since we're going to bring kids into that size. Obviously, Toll Brothers has done that on their particular projects. He should do that too, to get some information and get some feedback from them, especially if they're not going to pick up the kids, in the complex, then what are the arrangements? School district has to know. Is that an additional bus route? Is that an increase to hire another bus driver for the school district to pick the kids up there? What is the bus
They
route?
don't look into that? I mean,
I do not know if they looked
When
into
they
that.
send the application up to the school doesn't look at that? Because I didn't see that there was a letter back, or there was reference to a letter back from the school, and I just would assume
Yes,
that-
the
'cause
school
that's-
said we can take, whatever
Yeah.
kids are, we can take them, as Mr. Wire said. Nothing was really specific. The school district will say, if you have children, we will take them.
Okay.
Just want clarification. It may or may have not been
I
done.
don't know, I just never knew
I'm
they
just saying,
did
I think that's information that the board, should have, so that all parties involved within the community, town board, school district planning, the applicant, everybody has all the same information to make,
Right.
an informed decision on what direction to go. I just want to go back to the workforce housing, which was brought up. I had made mention at the planning meeting that, this particular project, which, should be made available to the residents. It's a project for the town. It should be made available for the town residents. We are offering this to the town. It should be either the right of first refusal or whatnot. But if he's required based on the loan structure that he has, maybe he should look someplace else for his loan and not do it under that financing. I'm sure at TEG, and our other neighborhood lenders who've done a lot of construction lending in the community might be willing to partner with him on a great project like this. So, not that I'm not, opposed to the idea, but in my opinion, this particular project, the first people that should benefit it is the residents of this town, i.e. police, firemen, people that work here. It should be affordable housing for the town of East Fishkill, as far as I'm concerned. The other concern is we brought back with the lottery, it's a lottery. It may end up with a percentage of town people. It may not. We don't know. He mentioned that he'd had a complex 75 units. He had 500 applications. I don't know if those 500 applications came from everyone in the immediate area or from elsewhere.
No.
We don't know.
No, this is true. I mean, but I'd have to be curious about any residences or any other facilities. Where do they come from? I mean, are you going to say they just have to be here, or would there be a bigger radius in East Fishkill would be okay? I don't know.
Well, I'm saying if it's in the town of East Fishkill, I'm looking at my town. This is my town.
Absolutely.
It's something for my
We're
town.
looking
My
at our town, too.
My town should come first.
And
I'm not opposed to going outside of my town,
Right.
but if he can only rent 30 units and he needs to go outside, then that's okay. But town residents should have first opportunity. Just my
I agree.
personal.
I think there's probably legal
Just my
issues with
opinion.
that.
Well, like I said, it could be based on
Fair
the
housing
requirements
law or
of his
something
loan
like
and
that,
fair
yeah.
housing. Well, if you get your financing that way, then you have to adhere to that rule. If you get financing from the neighborhood bank, you do not. So, not sure if that was ever considered. Question. I think really just kind of in a recap. I love the model. I love this model. I love the idea of partnering with Abilities First. What I don't like is the location. I don't think this is an ideal location. I don't think putting this in a 9-acre site where it is for safety, being that close to town, the congestion, the safety for our kids, the issues that are affecting our school district. Okay, I mean, you can move it to another part of East Fishkill, yes, and it might still affect Fishkill Plains, but that's just one factor. My main concern, besides the kids, is the fact that I think the safety issue of the residents, the people that live around there, and even the people that are going to live in the complex. Okay, so if they're going out and they're going to assimilate into the community and they want to go for a walk, I still think that Route 82 over there is extremely dangerous, even with a sidewalk. So I like this project. I think it's great. Abilities First is great. I think Mr. Kearney's model that he's put together in other locations is great. I think this works. I just don't think this works in this particular location. And I would hope that there would be another location somewhere where the safety is minimal in terms of the things that I brought up, and it logistically would work within the size of the complex. He has on the other side of the buildings the picnic area and kind of the recreation area, which means those residents that are on the condo side have to come through. I'm assuming there'll be a fence there so there's no access to the railroad tracks and everything that's there. But what if those kids want to run across the street to Oasis to buy soda, or kids are kids? They're going to see something, they're going to run. Are we putting up a traffic light there? Is there going to be a walkway? Are there going to be flashing lights? I just feel overall it's not in the right location. It's a great project, just not there. So I appreciate your time and thank you very much.
Good evening, Supervisor Hickman, board members. My name is Mary Seminara. I reside on Shadow Lane in Hopewell Junction. I've lived here for about 13 years. Shadow Lane is located on the other side of the railroad tracks from the Joe's Mother's Road property. I am opposed to this proposed project as put forth by this developer, and I urge you not to issue a special permit. According to Article 12 of the Zoning Board Special Permits Supplementary Use Regulation on Workforce Housing, it says that the town board has determined that there is a need for housing located and designed to meet the needs of everyday working families and citizens of the town of East Fishkill. This determination is not specified here, although I have heard anecdotal evidence for this need. This current proposal is yet another attempt to put extremely dense housing on this lot. The current proposal piggybacks on a previous scheme that this board has already denied. A proposal is before the planning board for this 9-acre piece of property where only about 7 acres are buildable due to wetlands and slope for 68 homes, 68 families to inhabit an area surrounded by by houses built on 1 acre or more in an R1 zoning district. The board has already approved a change in zoning where this kind of change to the character of a neighborhood is possible. During the public hearing on September 16th, before the planning board, the developer stated that the occupants for this development would come from anywhere, not from East Fishkill, and this would be done by lottery. There are chapters both of the zoning law, Part 2 regulatory provisions and Part 3 administrative provisions for affordable housing and workforce housing. In these chapters, it is clearly stated that this workforce or affordable housing is for people related to East Fishkill, those who work here, and not everyone, and not determined by a lottery as stated by the developer.
Excuse me, just clarify one thing for me. That's not the law for the subdivisions. Tom, is that the law for the subdivision where the 10% set aside has to be set aside for town of East Fishkill? I'm just curious.
I'm not sure which chapter she's going. There are
I got these off the town code from...
Yeah, but we have two provisions for affordable
there's
housing.
One for subdivisions.
The one
and
affordable housing is in a regular conventional subdivision.
What was the...
194-91.1 workforce housing?
That would be this, yes.
Yes.
That's the section here.
Yes.
Just want to make sure we're on the same one.
Okay.
Okay.
So from 194-91.1, workforce housing states that the town board has determined that there is a need for housing located and designed to meet the needs of everyday working families and citizens of the town of East Fishkill. And I'll skip the other one. So I believe one of the board members also said that the order goes for preference for the housing to purchase or rent is employees of the town of East Fishkill, members of the East Fishkill Volunteer Fire Department, elderly or disabled residents of the town, honorably discharged U.S. veterans who are residents of the town, all other town residents, people who work at businesses within the town, and then others. In the event that the number of applicants exceeds the number of available units, the department shall allot the units by category and within a category by chronological order of filing. I do not hear the words lottery or anyone in this description. Clearly, there is a hierarchy in the intent of these housing efforts, again, not by a lottery and not open to anyone. So if I'm stating the wrong rules here, because there were two sections that I saw, but in the intent, it is the intent of this section to encourage the development of moderately priced, affordable dwellings for everyday working families and citizens in the town of East Fishkill. The zoning ordinance goes on to say this over and over and over again. Okay, to follow up on what the previous speaker said, I also agree that this is not an appropriate site for this project. This is a very small parcel by comparison to, say, the Wildflower Hills, which has a much, much bigger buffer zone around it. It has almost 16 acres to the north, approximately 39 acres to the east, Route 376 to its west, and houses to the south, again on 1 acre zoning. The location of Wildflower Hills is a much less dense and a much less busy part of town. This proposal is also, it's in a very congested area along that part of 82. So we have proposed landscaping, which will provide effective camouflage, as we saw in the planning board meeting, but this camouflage is really after a 10 to 20-year growth period. Another section for this housing was to provide a pedestrian connection to the hamlet. Okay, there is no pedestrian hamlet to the connection, which was just discussed by the previous speaker. And it really seems unlikely that there will be one, considering we have a bridge to deal with between this proposal and the center of town. One of the things that was brought up during the planning board meeting was also about the municipal water and sewers and the provision for those. And I understand that this has not yet been settled. There was some concern raised about the cleanliness of the IBM pipeline water. And then I'm assuming that the other fallback position is the well located on the Cannon property. I didn't hear anything about what the fallback plan for the sewer part was if the municipal water and sewer hookups don't happen. And also, there was also some concern raised at the planning board meeting that this site would end up getting clean water before the Superfund site. And shame on the town board if it lets this happen.
Excuse me if I just may comment on that the Superfund is a federal, that's a federal project. The town has nothing to do. We work with the EPA, which is a federal agency. It's cleaning up the Superfund. So although you can say shame on the town, it's really, this is a federal matter. We're trying our best. We have offered everything. We just had a conference call with them again yesterday. I would love to have that water up there years ago, but we were dealing with the federal government, okay. So I just want to make that clear.
Thank you for that correction. I was not aware of that. In the area of public transportation, again, to echo what the previous speaker said, we don't really have public transportation in our area. So that part of people living in this proposed project would have difficulty getting to essential services in town. Walking to the post office would be a chore. I had a question regarding the on-site office space. According to some of this, that the workforce housing is for dwelling units and not for office space, and I don't know how the office space got included in this plan. Also, for security, there's a mention of security office and on-site security patrols. There's no mention of on-site security in the proposed plan. I'm assuming that the East Fishkill Police Department will be on call for patrolling. I want to get back to the landscaping. That came up at the planning meeting as well. Much attention has been paid to how this development would look from the Route 82 side, but not much attention has been paid to those of us who live behind the development. There is some landscaping planned, but it seems pretty sparse. There's also a difference in elevation, and I believe those of us behind this proposed project will have a clear view of the backside of this development and the construction of the same if it does go forward. If this proposed project were to go forward, a tall fence of the stockade type installed before construction begins might help to mitigate some of the noise of the construction, help to disguise this proposed project, and perhaps help in keeping our properties from becoming paths to town. My concern also is about any lighting. Again, there's a difference in elevation between Joe Smothers Road property and those of us who live on the other side of the railroad tracks. I would hope that the planning board would look at this very, very carefully. Again, fencing may be of help. Properly aimed and perhaps timed or motion-sensitive lighting maybe could be considered should this proposed project be approved. My other concern was about snowfall. I didn't even think about the plowing problem, but I'm sort of wondering if we have record snowfalls, how this development will manage their snow. I know they have allotted areas for snow removal. They don't seem that very large based on all of the parking area that they have, so I'm curious as to where the extra snow is going to be going and how this factors into stormwater management planning. As far as having the recreation area where it is, I'm wondering how noise is going to be mitigated. I know when there are car shows on Route 82, the music is very loud and clear in my yard and in my house. Noise carries far. Another troubling aspect of this proposed development arose during that same public hearing before the planning board when a resident asked the developer about a pilot agreement. The developer hesitated before answering and came up with, "I don't know," for an answer. I didn't know what a pilot program was or pilot agreement was, so I looked it up. And I'm sure this board is aware of this, but for the benefit of others who might not know, pilot stands for payment in lieu of taxes. And one of the definitions is it's an incentive for investment in taxable infrastructure or other facilities that create a public benefit, a pilot may be negotiated to limit or defer the property taxes on a developer, striking a balance between public and private economic needs. In effect, the local taxpayers are subsidizing the development, which might have otherwise gone elsewhere. This is unconscionable. Here is a proposed development that is open to anyone and is not to benefit the East Fishkill population specifically in the method outlined by local law and confirmed by the developer's own business plan and statements before the planning board at the public hearing.
Can I just add, where did you get that definition of pilot?
I'm looking things up online.
Okay.
Trying to get educated on these topics. This aspect requires much more scrutiny to ensure that the taxpayers are not left with the bill for this proposed project.
I couldn't agree more. We don't want the taxpayers to be paying for this, and the town already has a pilot agreement with IBM, so we're a little familiar with it.
Right. So I'm asking.
But I couldn't agree more.
I'm asking you to not let the taxpayers of East Fishkill end up subsidizing this proposed development. This is the wrong proposed project on the wrong piece of property with the wrong audience and subsidized perhaps by the wrong set of taxpayers. Seems like all the benefit goes to those outside of East Fishkill, and those of us who do live here are being set up to be saddled with the bill. I urge this board to deny this special permit and find a different location for the right workforce housing proposal that will benefit those living and working in East Fishkill and not become a burden on the tax-paying citizens of East Fishkill. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. All righty, anybody else like to speak for or against the project?
Hi, I'm Irma Farfaro, as most of you know, and I think the abilities first and workforce housing is very necessary for our area. However, I do agree with previous speakers that it's not a good location. However, if the location stands, I urge you to downsize it. It's been already made a smaller footprint, but we're going from one single house on farmland to a density of 68 units. That's got to be a huge impact. I don't care what the impact studies show. It's got to be an impact on our town. They claim that 68 units will only have a 34-car impact. I don't see how that's possible. Or that 68 units will only have a 21-student impact. That also seems odd to me. However,
Well, I would just say the gentleman from Abilities First did have a good point that those will not have children, so he did make a good point in that respect.
yeah, but if you're having 2 and 3 bedroom units,
And then 2 or 3, but I'm just going to say the math that came out with the Abilities First wouldn't have that. So.
yeah,
But absolutely.
but the other housing for
others would.
workforce would.
Yes.
And that still seems like low numbers for cars or students. So I question that. And how it could not have an impact on this area when you are going from open space to densely populated space. Also, I am wondering if there was an endangered species study done, in as much as there is a wetland
I believe there
behind
was.
it.
I think I saw that endangered species was done, yes.
And the planning board said there would be no negative impact. I know that swamp goes behind my house, too. And the turtles come out in June in big force. They're going to lose that whole field. They're not going to have any place to lay their eggs. I know it sounds silly, but there's other wildlife that I'm not familiar with that's got to be living there also. And also in the previous meeting, the fact that the historical house is being saved is wonderful. However, I asked the question, is it going to be maintained and how well would it be maintained? And that question was not answered. Thank you for your time.
Okay. Anybody else like to speak?
Good evening. How are you? Maureen Natrella. I'm just going to make this very brief. I don't like public speaking. Quiet, Peter. I just want to say I'm working down in Westchester County, assistant to DPW. Mr. Kearney's projects down in Westchester County is modeled for the county, for the residents of Westchester County. I'm hearing a lot of people here fishing for excuses and reasons not to support it. I'm looking at it that our own kids are leaving the area. My 2 daughters, they left the area because they're not going to be able to afford living here. You made it water issue. John, I remember how hard you worked for the area to give us clean water. And many people appreciate it. Many people didn't recognize you or thank you for it. The veterans, police, fire, educators, I believe that they have or should have a chance to stay in this area. And I know it's a lot of board members are a little hesitant or supporting it because of being supported or upsetting the voters. But sometimes we have to take a stance and do what's right for the area. Public transportation, you're hearing a lot of people having complaints or issues whether or not they're going to be able to get to town. Well, you can support relying on family members, walking, and you're looking at the bus transportation could be tweaked. Bus stops added, bus stops deleted. So I urge you to support it.
Okay, thank you. All righty, anybody else like to speak? Mr. Mills, good evening.
Good evening. I'm Malcolm Mills. I'm just speaking on behalf of the Historical Society. As Irma mentioned, there is a very fine house there. It's an 1818 federal-style farmhouse. I was in it several times in the light when Mrs. Doughty was alive, and I'd just ask that the developer put some, if he's going to keep it, that he put some bond up so that at least it is protected for a good number of years. Too many times I've been here and fought and defended these old houses. We lose 2 or 3 historic houses a year, and I think it's a tragedy because that is part of our history. And that road that we talk about, I'm not going to talk about the traffic, but George Washington walked along there, and so did Burgoyne's defeated army after Saratoga. They marched along there, and I doubt actually if the road has been improved very much since those days. So I would ask that if the board does approve this, that they do put some provision in to try and protect that house, at least for the foreseeable future. Too many times, if we look at the development on Lake Walton, we fought that one. The developer promised to keep that. What happened? 5 years later, it's just demolished. We look at, I can go on and on and on naming the houses.
It's a heartbreaker. I agree with you 100%,
Thank you.
Malcolm. Let's see what we can do about maintaining this house. Okay, anybody else like to speak? Anybody have anything to say?
I would like to ask, what is the tax deal? I would like to ask you, what is this tax deal or pilot program?
A pilot is a negotiated deal.
With this property?
Oh, there's been no negotiations about this pilot. I like pilots because they give you continuity, and you have to agree at the fair and proper value. And that would be critical to making sure that the taxpayer does not pay for it.
All right, so that's not settled yet?
No.
All right. You opened up this meeting about the Muse, selling it for our people in the town here.
I opened up the meeting about the Muse, telling about how we came to this point about looking for...
I totally support the idea. I'm totally for this. I mean, I'm against it. I'm kind of against the location because of the road itself. Because once people leave there, if you're walking or even pulling out of there to add to the traffic, it's a hazard. Went through the hazards of the gas station on 52. Thanks to the state DOT, they changed that and made it a little safer. But that whole setup is, I can just see the hazards, and I'm hoping I'm not on that road to be part of that next accident. But my concern is the way you sold it, and do like many of the residents here were concerned, do our East Fishkill residents who can afford to live here have a first bid on when this opens? Do we get a first choice?
No, I believe that that's not available with this type of funding. But we certainly will talk to the gentleman who will be looking at it.
It's the way you open up selling it. And I'm kind of curious, with Twin Creeks, wouldn't that be a better location?
Excuse me?
Twin Creeks, that property across the street here, is that used up yet?
No, it's still there.
That'd be a great location, a lot better than that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good point. Thank you. All righty. Okay.
Good evening. My name is Jill Dutcher, and I'd also like to start out by saying the way this has been, excuse me, proposed tonight is totally different than the last meeting I think most of us were at, and a lot of different things have been said here tonight than were said that night.
Which night was that? The planning board?
The planning board meeting.
Just want to clarify that.
Okay. Well, everybody else in the room knows what I'm talking about.
I just want to make sure that this, you were talking about a previous meeting at this board.
Oh, no, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
I remember very clearly it being stated that after the first year the people weren't monitored about who was living there, because there were some jokes in the audience that you could go and live there, and then in the next year you could have somebody else move in that makes more money, and you wouldn't be paying what most of us are paying now to live here. maybe I misunderstood that, but that's, I think, does anybody else remember hearing that be said, that after the first year, there was no more monitoring? You talk about being afraid of lawsuits and having to let projects go through because somebody could sue the town or whatever else, but I think you have...
I don't believe we said that.
Maybe that hasn't been said here, but it has been said when people call and question and give their opinions. I've also heard people say that you have told them that you're not really in favor of this project. People can say whatever they want to say, but I'm not getting that feeling here now. You talk about this should be allowed for people who live in East Fishkill. Yeah, it should be, but that's major discrimination. And you said we're gonna try to make sure, and we'll talk to Mr. Carney, and you can't do that. There's fair housing. Mr. Carney himself said at the planning board meeting that if someone applies and fits the criteria and they're moving here from Ohio, they can live there. And that's absolutely true with fair housing laws and everything else. So we can't say that only East Fishkill people can live there, but the East Fishkill people will be affected. And I think most of what everybody has said here in this meeting, and there's not as many people here as were at the planning board meeting, the location, the traffic, you can't get through this area, this town as it is now, and I think that really has to be taken into consideration. We want to, pride ourselves on East Fishkill as a great place to live, but I don't know, I start to question when things like this go that we really think are dangerous. It's not the site, I don't know, the site visibility, the traffic studies that were talked about at the planning board meeting. The gentleman didn't have any of the paperwork in front of him, so I'm not sure that any of us really know how reliable those traffic studies are. And they did say it was only 34 cars at certain times that would affect this. I don't believe there's only going to be 34 cars in there. And I also think that the Abilities First people can have their aides or their whoever has to come and help them, which is that's fine. But there's traffic for that too, not just who's living there. Another issue I have is some of the studies and the, I don't know what I want to say, the figures come from 2012. I've sat in on some of these meetings that people come here with things that are 6 months old and they have to go redo them. So I'm a little confused about that. Zoning. I think a lot of us were unaware that the zoning was changed. I didn't think we could just change zoning.
We created a special permit a few years ago looking at the need for workforce housing. We created a special permit, held public hearings right here in this room.
Okay. And it was just for workforce housing?
Well, we've done a lot of different laws, but one of them was for workforce housing.
Okay. All right, I think I pretty much said probably what a lot of the other people have said. Thank you for your time. Oh, one other thing I wanted to say is Mr. Carney also said he has so many applications for this housing. Maybe we should find a bigger location so there could be, serve more people. Thank you.
Alrighty, I think we've covered a lot. Anybody like to add anything that we haven't already heard? I think that we've heard the traffic concerns, pedestrian concerns, site constraints. That anybody have anything new that they'd like to add? So, because I'm keeping a list so that we can sit down as a board and review it. Anything new anybody would like to add, or have we pretty much covered?
My name is Anne Marie Baker. I've been a resident of the town for almost 40 years.
You'll all be pleased to know I have no prepared statement, but I do have a couple of questions. It was mentioned that people's income statements and whatever would be reviewed on an annual basis. I would like to know of the current projects.
Excuse me, maybe you would address
sorry. If the current projects that the company has, the current housing projects like this that they have, are all of those currently at 100% reviewed? Approximately how much time do they think it would take for review for the residents in this facility? Do they have adequate staff to address that? And is there a governing body or a regulatory body that oversees that to ensure that it is actually reviewed every year?
He did say previously that the funding agency reviews it, but that's a very good point to make sure they have the staffing. And he did say previously that they do an annual recertification, so you can definitely look into that.
And in addition, are there any similar projects in the area that we might go and take a look at to see how well maintained they are?
Yeah, I believe he said they had one in Poughkeepsie, one in Beacon. We can get a list of them if you'd like to give a call.
Okay.
And we'll see. I'm sure that the gentleman can provide me a list. So
Okay.
you can take a look at it.
And those are a similar project to this, or that's a different
I think they do
income level?
You know, do senior. Then they have one. They have one for seniors and one's for veterans up in Poughkeepsie. They have different types of projects. But absolutely, we get a listing of them.
Thank you.
Thank you. Where is my agenda? All right. If that's it, the board have any more questions? I think we have a lot of things to take a look at. With that, I would make them. Oh, excuse me.
I have some comments. So the public knows I've been doing my due diligence. Councilman Cassidy and I did do a site visit to one of the applicants' projects, the Muse at Baldwin Place in Somers, and we saw that, and it was a very nice project. It was very well done. I did have conversations with a few people. Rich Morrissey, the supervisor of the town of Somers, he is the current supervisor when the Muse and Muse 2 in Somers were proposed and built. He was on the town board, and I spoke with then Supervisor Mary Beth Murphy to ask the credibility of the applicant. How was his project presented? How was it built? How does he follow up on his project? And they were both very clear to tell me that he does follow through with his projects. I also spoke with Todd Tancredi, the supervisor of the town of Poughkeepsie. He said similar. They have a project there, Pendel Commons, which he said has some controversy also. And after it has been built, everything is going very, very well. I spoke also with Mayor Randy Casal from the city of Beacon to ask about the applicant. About the applicants has a few buildings there, and he told me that they had workforce housing buildings that were expired, and that the applicant still continues to own them, still continues to maintain them, and they are in good condition. I think it's very important to know that, you know, where I'm going with this is that good management is a key here. Of course, all the other considerations, traffic and schooling, has been addressed by the planning board. They did get a negative declaration, which I understand there are certain other conditions that we would like to see. We can also add that to a site plan approval. Is that correct? But I think that we need this type of housing. I'd like to know what our legal obligations are, Tom, in this situation.
Under the federal law, as one speaker alluded to, you can't discriminate in housing. It has to be open. We all know of the turbulence in Westchester County where organizations have sued because zoning ordinances are supposed to allow all aspects of housing as of right, not just single-family homes on acre lots, etc. It's supposed to have a whole broad spectrum of it. hear the speakers say about local support. The federal courts have said you have to look regionally for housing needs. It can't just be. We know that the same people who have challenged the Westchester laws are now in Putnam County gathering information, et cetera, probably getting ready to challenge a lot of that. Our law is not a perfect law. It has this permit, which certainly gives the town board some flexibility to allow for approval or approval of a project to meet the needs of the town and the region with respect to different kinds of housing. So we do know that there are people who litigate these things. They also look at how well the town is fulfilling the needs already. I know that my experience in another community that I represent, a project 92 units, much the same concerns, and after it was built and completed just about 2 years ago, the fears were all gone. It's well managed by another company, and the number of students, were well below the numbers that were predicted. So, but the law is clear that you have to have zoning that allows all types of housing. And I think if you take a good look at ours, we're pretty heavy on single family, detached, 1 acre or more homes.
So we've had that experience with Twin Creeks back in the 80s when the lawsuit was brought against the town and they won.
Right.
So certainly it's...
Well, that's a concern for me. One of the residents said a fear of a lawsuit. I'm concerned that this, if whatever happens in the future here, if it's denied and the applicant sues or somebody sues, I've done a lot of research online also and looked at other municipalities who have fought for years, hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars.
Well, and I think the point to be made is that the lawsuit is not just to get this project approved, but the lawsuit is to challenge the constitutionality of our whole zoning ordinance. Mm-hmm. And when the court agrees that an ordinance is unconstitutional, they void your ordinance and give the community a very short period of time to come up with a zoning ordinance, a map actually of where housing could be, and subject to the approval of the courts, and it takes away a lot of the local input. So it's a very difficult situation.
I love to hear from all the residents, and I have listened to a lot of residents, and I have concerns also for traffic there. But in the end, I think that my own personal opinion is that if we entered into a legal battle, that if we ended up paying hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars, and then we still had to come up with some sort of project as some sort of location, that then it's out of our hands and we have no say whatsoever, that then I would really be unhappy. And then who knows who the management company would be or who the applicant would be. At least we have a little rapport with somebody who we can go to and try and be a good neighbor with. It's a very difficult, I think we're in a difficult spot, but I think we have to think about our long-term goals. If, we enter into some sort of battle of $1 million, that is 5% of our budget. How can we sustain something like that? It's just a concern, and I spoke with the assessor also about the taxes, and that was a concern for me to make sure that this is a rateable type of property. The assessor explained to me how they assess these type of projects. It goes based upon the rental and how much rent they're paying, and it is I guess a New York State
revenue
formula that they use, and she said that she could go into more detail with me or anybody else who, wanted to know about that. And
well, I should point out that the law for any rental property like Hopewell Garden Apartments, any multiple family, it's based on, as a business, on the rent and the income expenses. Right. And the particular law in New York State says that this type of units must be assessed on that method. And the law just says you can't say what they should be renting for if they were below market. Right, but we're actually finding in our analysis that the rents proposed at this unit would actually, because the tenants here would have to pay for utilities, are actually higher than the Hopewell Garden Apartment rents. Right. And so, I don't think the taxation issue is going to be an issue.
Right, we have to take that into account. Good point. All right, any other comments from the board?
I have a comment, John. I just want to say to start the conversation is that this is a great program. It's a great project. The company that is conducting this project is a great company. It's got a great reputation. The comments from the public tonight, they were not regarding the company nor regarding the project. Everybody said that they're in favor of this project. Just the location of the project is in question. As a board, we gave our planning board the job to do their diligent work, and I think our planning board has failed. A couple of reasons. Questions that were asked tonight, they were asked the same night at the planning board, and the questions were not given answers. And the same people are here tonight with those questions. Conducting a meeting at 2 o'clock in the morning when everybody's sleeping, it's not the proper way. I hope we'll never see this again. I would like to see a resolution put forward with a time limit on a town planning board to have speedy meetings and not conduct them at 2 o'clock in the morning. We've had complaints on this board that we have our meeting past 9:15.
That's only the board members complaining.
Well,
Yeah.
John, I agree with you. Somebody made a statement about some of us up here that are pressured by our citizens. I don't think there is no such thing. We're here to do the job for the people of East Fishkill, not for certain people in the town of East Fishkill. That's point number one. Point number two, when the special permit was given out or put out, there is an issue with the way it's worded out. Okay? That special permit has an issue. That's very specific to the way it reads. And the lady pointed it out. The town board has determined that there is a need for housing located and is designed to meet the needs of everyday working family and citizens of the town of East Fishkill, which is available to a great range of income levels and will aid in the retention of the town's citizen workforce population, such as teachers, police officers, firefighters, and nurses. Now, again, I'm in favor of this project, and I'm going to say it again. Location is a big issue, and we have to address that. It has not been addressed. The last study and questions were asked at the planning board meeting. One of the specialists that conducts the study for the traffic, at the time they said 18,000 cars a day. Now, the 30 or so family that are going to live in here, their cars coming out of there probably is not going to have an impact. But the fact that we're opening up a driveway where school buses have to stop 7 o'clock in the morning, all these issues have been addressed by the citizens. And it was disappointed that the planning board that night, when some citizen got up and said, you know, it's 2 o'clock, we have addressed some issues, we didn't get the answers, and you're still voting on this. Seems like to me that we're shoveling down somebody's throat medicines that they don't need and they don't want to take. And as a representative of our town, that's probably one of the main things we have to think about. I know that we need this project and it's necessary. But the location is the questions. And when Nick says that he went to do the research about the company, I know the company very well. We're not talking about the company or the validity of that company. We're talking about the location. Everybody that got up over there tonight spoke about the location. That's their main concern. I don't know if we want to put the whole town on their knees. I don't want to cut somebody's nose to spite their face, but that's where we come through with this situation right now. And this all started because that special permit was issued the way it has been issued. And now, because of that, we're here tonight. Otherwise, maybe the company would have chosen a different area to do this project. So, some very important issues to address. I don't know what are we going to do after the discussion, but it's important for these people to get answers to the question that they've asked. And that's one of my main concerns. Again, great company, great project. It has to be done in East Fishkill. I question the location, just like some other people have done. That's all I have to say.
Okay. In just response to a couple of things, when we drafted a special permit, you draft the law, you're going to look at the law, you try your best. We will take a look at the law and make sure it's not in conflict with the law that we have on the books now or for what the applicant is proposing. We certainly will do that. If there's a question of a need of workforce housing in the town of East Fishkill and the fact that we crafted a special permit, I still, in my heart, feel that there's a need for this type of housing. So that being said, we will take a look at this. There's a few more things that I took notes that were just more than the location. There was more questions than that. So what I'm going to do is take my notes. We're going to go through the notes. I will share them with the town board. I would like to meet with the applicant, get some answers, and we will discuss this. But one thing I would like to say that I think our planning board does a fine job. I realize the fact that last week when the planning board meeting was held, it was a long night. I have to thank the planning board, the chair, and all the members of the planning board because I know in their heart they're trying to do the right thing. What's that?
And those
And the people that came
till 4
out,
o'clock in the morning.
but something has been said against our planning board.
No, I know.
And I just
All
want
of
to
them.
make it clear that I really think they do a good job, and I know they try their best to do the right thing, as we all do. Because as you said, you know, we have to look at things objectively. Now we have a list of concerns from the public. Obviously, we're going to look at these. The applicant has an application before us, and our job is to look at it all, weigh it, and make a decision. So that being said, I'm going to make a motion tonight to close the public hearing. But please, anybody who still would like to send written comments, please feel free. But close the public hearing. We have a list of issues that we will have to take a look at, and then we will discuss this matter next month.
You're going to reopen the public hearing? Yeah, adjourn the public hearing.
You want to adjourn it? We can adjourn the public hearing. I have no problem with that. I thought that we'd gotten everything out of the way, but if you want to adjourn it, I have no problem with that either. So with that, do I have a motion to adjourn the public hearing to October 23rd?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Okay, the public hearing is adjourned till the 23rd. I've taken a list of the comments that were made tonight, a few pages, that we're going to be reviewing in this matter. And again, if you have anything, because it would serve us better if you could get us the comments before the 23rd. I hate to wait till the 23rd and get another comment and say, wow, that's something I wish we looked at a while back. So please get us any written comments as soon as possible so we can consider them.
John?
All right? Yeah. So with that, we've adjourned the public hearing to October 23rd, and we're going to take a 5-minute break. Thank you very much.